Queen G. I know you like it when I call you that.
I do, yeah. It makes me feel like a queen, which is always
What?
lovely.
Welcome to the Body Love Binge podcast. Did you ever think you would be a guest on this podcast?
Absolutely not. I mean, there's so many things that have happened that I could never have even imagined like a year ago, but this is great. Yeah, it feels good.
Yeah, and here we are. So, 10 quick fire questions. You know the score. You ready?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. If you could only eat one type of food for the rest of your life, what would you eat?
Yogurt bowls.
Oh, good. I love it how you've got
Yeah,
everything in there then.
because it's you can have anything in it, and you did say type of food,
Yep,
so that's where I'm going with it.
love that. What's your favorite song at the moment? Number two.
Oh, um, my favorite song at the moment is a very like poppy song, but it's constantly in my head. It's called Diet Pepsi, and it's by Addison Rae, and I just can't get it out of my head.
I've not heard that one. I'll check
It's
it out.
very poppy, but yeah, it's just in my brain.
Nice. I used to make up I can't remember ones I used to say now, but I used to make up like little recovery mantras that was like in a song. You know, when songs get stuck in your head, it's more the tune.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you sing along, and I do quite often just sing myself through my day. I spend a lot of time on my own, so it's a
Yeah.
good way of getting through it. Yeah.
Hey. Number three. Don't want to ask that one. I always ask that one. Oh, if you could go back and relive one day of your life so far,
Ooh.
anything that sticks out to you?
And do it different or do it the same?
I guess to do it the same, if you could relive it again, like do the same experience again.
Oh, I think the first day that I met my partner.
Ah, how did you
Yeah.
meet?
We met on a dating app and then our first date. But I would love to have that feeling again. I
Oh,
think.
where did it take you?
We went bowling and then we went to Nando's.
Oh, you can't beat
Yeah,
Nando's for a first date.
great. Mhm.
All right, number four. What's the most random, spontaneous thing you've ever done? And did it turn out well?
Ooh. I'm gonna say recovery, and yes, it did turn out well.
Yeah. And how much fear on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being fully petrified, did you have before you started your recovery?
10, 100%, hands down.
I'm going to speak to that soon.
Mhm.
Number five, desert island, three things. What are you going to take?
So three things I would take: a library, like a digital one with podcasts and books, and then a blanket, like a cozy blanket, and ooh, the third one, maybe my dog. I know it's not a thing, but my dog.
Oh, good for company. Maybe he could catch you shit to eat, maybe. But you're
Yeah.
vegetarian. Are you vegetarian?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So do what we can on the island, you know.
At least you wouldn't eat your dog. Not that I would, by the way. All right. Number six, childhood memory that brings a smile to your face.
As a kid, my dad had a trailer that he used to put on the back of his car, and we used to go for trailer rides, and that always makes me very happy. We just used to all the kids in the back of the trailer and just used to drive along the country roads.
Oh, fun.
Do that again.
Yeah. Okay, number seven, if you don't mind sharing and you have a story to share, what's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you?
Many. Oh, I don't know. Nothing big, but I have daily small embarrassing moments. That's the kind of person I am, where I think, "Oopsie." So I just always put my foot in it. I'm not very good at being like in social situations. I'll always say the wrong thing, or so it's just one of them. I do things, but not one big story that comes to mind.
But these make you you. I guess your friends and your partner love these random things about you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I'm channeling that energy. When it happens, it happens, and it makes me me.
Yeah, I love that. Three things, three words to describe you.
Ooh. I want to say, I think I'm very positive and hopeful and ambitious.
I agree
And
with that. It's knowing you more and more these days.
Mhm.
Number 9, what was the last dream you had, if you can remember?
I've had a few nights of actually having very vivid dreams, and it was last night, and there was a lot of things going on, but the main bit I remember is there was lots of big books just open everywhere and characters jumping out of the books.
Oh,
And like talking to me and things, just very, very random. I don't know what that means, but
I mean, I always look at dreams on how they make me feel. So, how did you feel during that dream?
um, um, what's the word? I felt like it was almost like an investigation dream. Like I was looking into each book and trying to find things, and speaking to different people and getting information, and then so it was curious. It was
I'm
in a good
curious.
way,
Nice.
in a discovery way.
Yeah. Last question. What do you want people to take away from this conversation we're about to have?
I want people to know that you can feel fear, and that's fine. But letting fear stop you is, it's not an option for life in general. And I also just want it in general, like people to feel supported and understood and loved.
Yeah. Wow,
Yeah,
what a takeaway. Love that about the fear. Feel the fear and do it anyway, because that's where you're going to get to where you want to get to.
yeah.
So share with us about a bit about your story. So before you do, listeners, I met Georgia through my group coaching, and I know you had a one-to-one coach before that. So feel free to share up until the point you reached out for help. Then we'll go into the coaching, both
Okay.
from this person and the group. So that's Georgia's journey. But before you reached out for help, what was your story? Like, when did the eating disorder start? What was it like for you? Take yourself back.
Okay, so um, do feel free to tell me to fast forward if I do ramble, but I can't remember a time where I have felt secure around food or safe around food. Um, Being like a young child, food was definitely a comfort, and it's a way that my family showed love and um, affection and comfort. Everybody used it for that. Like I'm in the family of feeders
Mm.
slash dieters. Um, so my mum, I didn't know this when I was younger, and as a child, you don't see these things, but now looking back, there's like a lot of red flags and warning signs. But my mother had a severe like eating disorder herself, and has always struggled with poor body image.
Mm.
And that's like generational. Her mother's the same. And then my dad, he is not a dieter, but very much a victim of diet culture
Mm.
and very much a victim of his generation where it's just ingrained into beliefs that thin is better, that being overweight is dangerous and unhealthy, and that being productive, being busy is positive. And they're all beliefs that have been ingrained into him and that I've sort of had to work hard to relearn and dismantle those beliefs. Um, so as a child, quite like a very loving family. My parents never did anything wrong, but we moved around quite a lot, and I felt very insecure and like I couldn't really be myself. And I can remember from a very young age turning to food, and I can remember like having big binges as a young child, hiding food and eating in secret, and feeling very scared by that. Obviously, again, as a child, as a 4, 5, 6 year old, you don't know what's happening, but you feel the fear.
Yeah.
So then I grew up with that. I was overweight as a child. My parents didn't know what was going on, so was placed on many diets. from like doctors, dietitians, my parents like took me to Weight Watchers and things like that as a child. Always from a place of love, because they wanted to protect me from, I guess, the cruelty that's in the world at the moment with diet culture, where people are in danger. Sounds like quite a dramatic way to put it, but I'm just a dramatic person, to be honest. So,
with you on
yeah,
that.
but yeah, it was kind of seen dangerous to be overweight, so they were wanting to protect me. So yeah, lots of diets, and then I was very. I liked to be on my own as a child, and quite opposite to my friends and my sister. And I think the eating disorder developed just as like more and more diets went on, and then I got more and more praise and approval from losing weight, and it just spiraled really. I discovered calorie counting and then exercise. That was around the age of like 13, 14, and it just became like a downward spiral where I was losing weight, I was getting like praise and approval, and no matter how good my grades were, no matter like how kind I was, how funny I was as a person, I never got the praise or approval or just compliments in general from other people than I did when I started to lose weight. So
Yeah.
it just became very obsessive to a point then when I started to lose too much weight, and people started being concerned, and then I couldn't get myself out of it. And so then recovery for me, when I was 17, I was officially diagnosed with anorexia. And the first 5 years was my parents trying their best to help me recover. Different treatment centres. I've been inpatient in hospital twice. Nothing helped. And I think because ultimately, firstly, I wanted to do it myself, but I wasn't ready to do it myself then.
Yeah.
And then I would say the last 2 to 3 years, especially with my partner, it's been a learning process of trying to recover myself, but not fully committing to everything. Trying a little bit, increasing your food, stopping a little bit of the exercise, but always wanting to control things. And it's just been a lot of failed attempts at recovery where I've basically always ended up back in the same place. And I've learned over time that you can't have an eating disorder and live life at the same time. And it was I'm not going to say there wasn't one pivotal moment, but over time, like through looking at lots of different people in recovery or who have recovered, lots of different programs and coaching, that I sort of figured out what would help me, and what would help me would be to get a coach, which is when I reached out to get a coach, and that has changed everything for me.
Indeed, it has. So go back to that moment when you decided enough is enough, I'm going to get support. And feel free to mention your coach's name, like it's not just about me. So if you do want to share who your coach was,
Yeah,
feel free.
absolutely. So I had a lot of different coaching like calls, like discovery calls that you have.
Yeah.
One was with Liv, who you've worked with.
Oh, Liv, yes.
So I have done her program. And then for me, obviously she was in different time zones from me at the time. She was still in the US. So I found a coach based in England, which is where I am, called Alex Walker. And
Is
she
she
was,
blonde?
yes, she is. She's got
I think I
a
follow
fabulous,
her.
fabulous Instagram page, and just, website and everything. And I had a call with her, and we just connected. And she was like the most affordable and the most accessible to me. So I just felt drawn to her. I did that for, I think, 2 months. And it really, really helped me, push me in the right direction. However, I will say that it got to a point where I was too dependent on my coach.
Yeah.
And I would only, she worked like 8, she was very, very, like, she was amazing. She works 8 like AM till sort of, I think, 7 PM, around those hours. And it was like I was in recovery from 8 till 7, and then afterwards it was gone. And then at the weekends, same again, like because she didn't work weekends, I would not be in recovery.
Yeah.
And then
So would you say that you created like a codependent relationship?
100%. And yeah, and the 9 to 5 days where I was in recovery, I was making huge progress, but then I didn't feel safe or confident in myself to keep doing that at the weekends
Yeah.
or in the evenings. And then financially, it just became not an option for me, which is then when I reached out to yourself and your group coaching program. And I really liked the idea of it because it was a group coaching program. You gave your modules that you can work through are so the deep, and you have to do the work, but they are transformative. And it just helped me feel more brave and encouraged, and like I would be supported, but essentially I get to do this myself. And that
Yes.
was a big step for me. And then obviously having the calls with you and all the other amazing women, such an amazing community that we've got, I'm going to say, because you really do feel part of it. It's not like you are sort of leading it. It's a proper community where everyone shares experiences and so supportive, and it's amazing.
It's a
And
beautiful space, isn't
yeah, it
it?
really is.
Yeah. And I think back to the first time I met you on a call, and it's not about appearance, it's not. And some eating disorders, you can't tell if a person has an eating disorder or not by looking at them. That's the most common. But I remember looking at you now, comparing you to where you was back then. Oh, you're just a world apart. Like you're just glowing now. How do you feel when you look back at how you used to look like in the external world?
It's it does feel like a different person, and it feels like a different person who still exists. It's like there's two parts to my brain, so she's still there, and I have to care for her, and I have to make sure that that previous person is constantly progressing.
Yeah.
But when I look back, or I've rewatched some of our coaching calls, and I just look so disconnected from everything and so small, but not in just an appearance way, in a energy way. I
Yes.
feel small and closed and scared and tense, so tense. Whereas now I just feel like I have the energy to relax, which sounds having the energy to relax sounds like they don't go together, but you do. You need energy to be able to relax, and it feels amazing.
Can, because you are so grounded now. You're standing
Mhm.
in your power, you're connected to your power, which I think was perhaps when you were going through the modules and you entered the group, that's what shifted for you. It went from being codependent with your coach because you thought you needed her and you needed permission
Yeah.
to, and it's not just me, but me keeping mirroring back to you like, Queen G, you have the power to do this. Like, we are here to love and support you, and you get to do this for you. So
Mhm.
would you say it was that internal shift that helped you to just keep going at the weekends, like after a certain time in the day, and then eventually get to where you are now?
100%. I think it's that key word is the and that you used. It's we are here and we will support you and you can do it.
Yes.
And it's being able to take everything, all the things that are around you to support you, and taking everything into your own power, and then just going for it and figuring it out yourself. And of course I was scared and I didn't think I'd do it, but you do it for an hour at a time every day, and then you look back on your day and think, oh, I've done it this morning, I'll continue doing it this afternoon, and it just goes like that, and then eventually you don't think about it too much.
Yeah. I remember
And
you had a lot of questions, and it's worth speaking to because so many people will have the same, like
mhm.
questioning extreme hunger and being like, this cannot be fucking okay. Like I'm eating like a bazillion calories like daily. Is
Mhm.
this okay? And I'm like, it's okay. So just speak to your fear around like, and even give examples of a typical day. Not that I usually do this, but I think it will be helpful because
Yeah,
a lot of people think they've eaten, quote, too much when they eat like one chocolate bar.
yeah. My I remember the first time we'd had a coaching call. I think it was the day before, and I don't know if you remember, but I posted on the group a picture of all the food that I went to buy.
I remember.
of chocolate, ice cream, pastries, cereal, and that was the start of my extreme hunger. And that extreme hunger was there, like mentally, the whole time. And
Yeah.
it's not until I actually started eating that I realized how physically hungry I was.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's really important because people say, "Oh, but I'm not physically hungry, but I'm just thinking about food all the time." And it's just your body doesn't trust you, so why would it waste energy sending physical signals?
Yep.
But yeah, so that's how it started, and then it was just some days I can't lie, like some days I didn't feel brave enough to lean into all the hunger. But I think it's a case of you do the best you can with what you've got at every opportunity.
Yeah.
And if 'cause a lot, like, you can make mistakes, but you always learn from them. And I completely reframed my mind, and you 100% taught me this. They're not mistakes. You've not done anything wrong. It's a lesson that you can learn from.
Mm.
Um, and that was, yeah, very transformative. So, yeah, a typical day of eating for me in extreme hunger would be sort of I'm not sure if calories I can mention or not, but I
I
remember,
think it might be helpful in this case because knowing what you have eaten and knowing how people think, 5,000 calories is so much
Mhm.
food, I think it will give them permission in a way. So feel
Yeah.
free to share. Yeah.
So I know for me, I want to say the first 3 months was like 8,000 calories a day as a minimum. And that would be like I would just eat big and I would just eat a lot and quite often. I would find it very difficult to go an hour without food. It would literally be like I'd eat a lot and then I'd be able to do something else, not think about it. And then as soon as my brain sort of wandered back into the kitchen or like started thinking, oh, what's in the cupboards? I knew for me that was a sign of hunger. Um, and a lot of cereal, a lot of pastries, a lot of chocolate. I mean, like, yeah, a good amount of chocolate every day, peanut butter and Nutella, and just all the things that I thought were so dangerous.
Mm.
And it's only through eating those things every day that I've learned that there's nothing dangerous about them, and they're actually delicious, and you can eat them whenever. And the amazing thing now is that I have those things in my cupboards, um, and they're just there. And if I want one, if I'm thinking about it one day, I'll go and have one. And I'll have maybe a pastry as a snack one day. Maybe the next day I'll have a protein bar. Maybe I'll have chocolate cereal for breakfast one day. Maybe the next day I'll have like granola and yogurt or avocado toast or something like that. But it's all there, and it all feels safe to
Mm.
me. And that's a really lovely feeling because, yeah, I was just so afraid to even have food, like palatable foods like that in my house at one point because I was so scared that I was going to eat them. And now they're just there.
Yeah,
And
I remember your fear, like I'm literally going to be eating like this forever. This can't be okay because it feels like there's no end to the desire to eat all these foods that you've always restricted.
Mhm.
So when did you, I mean, time scale is irrelevant because it depends on the person. It depends how much they're going all in, right?
Mhm.
If there's still 1% of them restricting, it will prolong the extreme hunger. But how
Yes.
long did it take for you to get from the start where you were just eating extremely in the hunger compared to now where you just, I guess, would you say you have a quote normal relationship with food now?
I think so. It was since March and it's now mid September. And I would say to March, April, May, June, July. I would say maybe until sort of July, I was extreme hunger.
Mm.
And then gradually it's tapered off. And it was a case of it was weird. It was like I would still be eating a lot, like sort of maybe month 5, still eating a lot, but not getting that same euphoria that I would get from it in the extreme hunger. And I'd eat a full bar of chocolate and think, huh, and that's it. It wasn't oh, shouldn't have eaten that. I'm so guilty, or oh, that was amazing. I want another one straight away. It was just like, oh. I was just some chocolate, and that's it. And it was through that process and doing that over and over again that my food intake has gradually tapered down. And I still have moments now of eating more one day and less the other day.
Yeah.
Especially if I'm at work, as I've gone back to work recently. So especially if I'm at work, then I might eat a little bit less when I'm at work. Still eating 3 meals and snacks throughout the day of all types of food, and it doesn't feel restrictive in any way. And then the next day, I might have 2 breakfasts the next day just because I'm a little bit more hungry, or I might have an extra snack, but I don't overthink it. I just think, well, I'm hungry and I'm certainly not going to restrict. It's just not an option anymore because I know and I've learned that if I restrict, then it is 100% going to bite me back in the ass.
It does.
You
Always,
really,
100% of the time.
yeah, you just can't win with it. So it's just not an option. And I would rather eat more intuitively because my body's hungry than restrict and then end up overeating or binging later on in the day or the next day or whenever it is because I
Yeah.
didn't honor my hunger.
Yeah. What advice would you give to someone who is currently experiencing extreme hunger, and let's say they're physically allowing it, but they're emotionally and mentally being like, this
Ooh.
is not good for my health. Like, this is dangerous, those words. This is going to last forever. I'm going to gain weight forever. Like, the fears that we've all had in the moments. What
Mm-hmm.
advice would you give if you could give it to that specific person in that right now?
I would say, please know that you have unconditional permission to eat everything all the time, as every single human being on this planet does.
Yes.
And also, as in tangible advice, I would say I use a lot of mantras, and I spoke about this at the start of the call, but I would talk to myself, sing to myself all day, whether I was on my own, whether my partner was in the house, he just got used to it. I would just constantly be telling myself, it's okay, you can eat this if you want it, that's fine. You can have chocolate, you hungry for pudding again? You want another dessert? That's okay, we can have that. And always be talking to myself as if I was talking to younger me or a little girl who was scared of eating something or doing anything that she thought was bad when actually it was going to save her life.
Mm.
Just kindness, and always ask yourself, what would love want me to do now? And that mantra has helped me so much because I think it's just in my soul anyway, but I just feel like love is the only thing. Any changes that anybody wants to do, if they come from a place of hate, they're not going to be sustainable. But if they come from a place of love, then they're going to last forever.
Yeah. And love always wants the best for you. Even if it's scary, love isn't avoiding fear, right? It's probably the opposite most of the time. So I
100%.
know this is hard to be tangible with it because I've been there too. But you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that you were 10 out of 10 of petrified fear of starting recovery and weight gain and eating more and all the things. How did you feel the fear and do it anyway?
Oh,
If you can answer that, because I know it's hard, isn't it, to put it into words?
I think talking about it. So if there's, let me just shut that window. If there's somebody you can tell, I'm scared, and I'm going to do it. So
Yeah.
you're putting it out into the universe. If there's nobody you can tell, write it down or talk to yourself. But I think getting it out of your head and out into the world helps because it makes it real.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I would seriously talk to myself, or I would message my partner a lot, just saying, I'm in the supermarket and I've walked past some bread and I really want to buy it, but I'm really scared of buying the bread. And it's when you say things out loud that you think, I'm scared of bread. I'm a fully grown adult woman and I'm scared of bread. And you just think, well, that's a bit ridiculous. Let's buy the bread. Let's go and eat it. And
Yeah.
it's about, and I think that can sound quite harsh sometimes, but you have to be. You have to be disciplined, just as like you would with a child. You would do what is best for them. If it was strict, you'd put boundaries in place, and it would come from a place of love because you want what's best for that child. I
Yeah,
think that's important.
very important. So I'm hearing self-compassion, tough love,
Exactly.
consistency, sharing it out loud. I see that as acknowledging that it's there, because some people say, oh, just ignore it or just pretend it's not there. But then actually, that's bollocks if you ask me, because it is there and it does feel real. So if you acknowledge that it's there, then you have the power to move past it. But if you're
100,
trying to pretend it's not there, what you resist is what persists.
100%. Yeah, I tried a lot of visualization actually, and visualizing the eating disorder as a person on the street that was trying to get to me, and
Mm,
that I would just have to say, "Oh, hi," and then move past it.
yeah,
But you can't just ignore because then they'll carry on chasing you. You have to say hi. You
yeah,
have to be like, "Oh, you're there again. It's you again, eating disorder in my head, and you're not bothering me." And then you just move along and fake it till you make it is a big one for me. You have to, and I still do this to this day, act as if you don't have an eating disorder.
yeah.
Um, and eventually the voices in your head will quiet down. I still have moments now, 100%, where I have an eating disorder voice in my head, but I have to constantly do the opposite actions. And it's so much less than what it used to be, even last month. It gets less and less every day, and that's amazing. Um, Yeah, just opposite actions and just act as if you don't have an eating disorder, and those neural pathways will reinforce themselves, and eventually the old ones will be dismissed or you won't use them anymore, and the new ones, through consistency and determination and hard work, they will become your new neural pathways that you'll be able to use every day.
Boom. You said those magic words: consistency, determination, repetition. You didn't say, but it's the same thing. That's so
Yeah.
key. I'm curious, I've never really asked you about this. What does your partner think of you in your recovery?
I know he's so incredibly proud, and it has changed. I mean, we're young. I'm 25, he's 28. We've been together 5 or 6 years. I'm very bad for dates, but um, it's completely changed both of our lives. And he got to a point where he really didn't recognize me as a person, and it became a very um it was a relationship where we both resented each other. He was constantly worried and caring for me almost. I was constantly lying and hiding things from him. And it was just it wasn't going to work. And then through recovery, it's, I mean, just for myself, I feel like myself again. And he is able to recognize that. And it's almost like our love for each other and equally for ourselves as individual people has just completely like rebirthed almost. And he he will never understand it, but he has so much space and compassion, and he isn't afraid to give me tough love either, and I think that's amazing. And through me sort of healing myself, it's healed our relationship as well, and also him in himself as a person.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's really it's strong and powerful.
Yeah. Recovery isn't just having a normal relationship with food, is it? It's
No,
about so much more than that.
exactly. It really is a life change, and just to just when I think back that literally my every minute of every day was consumed by thoughts about food. If
Yeah.
I was going on a walk, I'd be on my phone entering like my calories and things into like fitness trackers, or and I've got so much brain space now, and I feel the energy you have when you know think about food all the time is magical. It's like it's unbelievable to someone. If anyone's listening who is still in that mindset of just constantly thinking about food, like please recover just to see how much brain space you can have and how powerful your brain and your body and your mind is. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Indescribable, isn't it?
Mm,
You mentioned the modules earlier. What
yeah.
was your favorite? module, or like what was your favorite aspect of the modules? Feel free
Oh,
to go as
Victoria.
deep as you like.
I I fucking love your like the modules in it they were just all amazing. I think for me personally, my favourite one, which was also the hardest one, was the inner child work because it's
I
something that
knew it.
I never considered it because I had such a perfect childhood. On paper, my childhood was beautiful. You'd look at it and think, she's got nothing to worry about. She's got two parents that loved her, like everything was fine. And it's only through diving, like going through everything, that I've been able to see where my wounds are and then acknowledge them and work on healing them.
Yes.
And
That
yeah,
is life-changing, isn't it?
it really is.
Yeah, to understand. It's not blaming, it's not, it's not staying stuck where it all started. It's just to be like, oh, because I remember being like, oh, fuck, that makes so much sense. Because I thought I had a perfect childhood too. That
Mhm.
can be an aspect of protecting the childhood you had that actually wasn't what you needed, and you can't see that, so you protect it and say it's like you generally see it as perfect. Nothing's perfect, everyone makes mistakes, and it's understanding that and then healing from those wounds. And you
Mhm.
mentioned reparenting yourself. That's key, isn't it? It was for me, like, and it sounds like you still do that, so you speak to little you with compassion and curiosity.
Yes, and that's something that I've taken. Obviously, it's helped me heal my relationship with food and my body and exercise, but it's something that I still practice every day in general life
Mhm.
because nobody teaches you how to be an adult. Nobody teaches you how to
No,
function in the world,
no.
and that is something that you have to teach yourself. And I think that reparenting myself is, yeah, it's just very powerful because you get to be your own parent, and like, what child wouldn't want to be their own parent? Like, that's
That's
freedom.
true.
So, yeah, it's a really powerful process to go through.
Yeah. What was the hardest part of this journey for you?
Um, Now, I thought that the hardest part would be the weight gain.
Yeah.
That's not true for me. At the start of it, I thought I'd hate the weight gain. For me personally, I know it is a lot for a lot of people. The weight gain's the most difficult bit. For me, it's not been that. And I think the only reason that it hasn't been is because of the work through the modules with you and my relationship with my partner. Like our relationship through me physically healing, um, like in his work, constant words of affirmation. I think I'm very privileged in a very privileged position to have that love for my body coming from someone else to help me like what do you call it, to help me nurture that love for myself, my own body.
Yeah.
um so the like actual hardest bit for me, 100% the I don't know how to call it, but the that productivity trap that I was in, and learn
Yes.
to give myself time and space for myself and learning to rest for myself to be my best self. That has been the hardest part. And that is still to this day something that I am constantly working on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you working on it? So for people to be like, oh my God, me too. I always have to be doing something, being productive. I know it's quite obvious and what to do, but what are you doing to nurture that and to heal that aspect?
I am, I would say, saying yes to myself. So if I have the idea of, oh, wouldn't it be lovely to just sit down and watch, so Strictly Come Dancing's just started in the UK. I love that show. So wouldn't it be lovely just to sit down and watch that? And then, oh no, because I've got to do this, that, and the other. It's saying yes to that first thought
Yeah.
that pops into my mind. Wouldn't it be lovely to sit down and read my book or go for a walk with my dog? No, because I've got to do this, that, and the other, and the washing, and the no, you can sit down and you can do that, and everything else will still be there, and you can do it later if you want. And it's just tapping into, it's like this feeling inside of your body that it feels right, but it in your head it is wrong to do, and it's
Yes.
going with what feels right in your heart rather than what feels right in your head.
Yes. Love that. Is that the same way you dealt with because you had quite a big exercise obsession,
Hmm.
especially the exercise in terms of like general chores and up and down the stairs and like never sitting still. That was, I think, the
Yeah,
last thing to go for you, if I remember
100%.
correctly.
Yeah, that. Yeah, the same thing, and also just asking myself the question, and what do I need right now to be my best self?
Mm.
Right now, to be my best self, do I need to spend ages running up and down the stairs to do the washing? Because it takes so much time not having a compulsive movement problem.
Yeah.
Is that going to allow me to be my best self, or to be my best self, am I going to be best leaving the washing and going for a shower and putting my makeup on, and then I can go and spend some time with my partner or go to work and do something that is actually going to be productive and help me on the long scale rather than right now.
Yes.
So that's just asking, what do I need right now to be Georgia, to be the best Georgia that there is, or the best Victoria, whoever is listening, obviously.
Yeah. And so I assume you had an image or a vision in your head of what and who the best Georgia is or was, because a lot of people are like, I have no idea what the best version of me is like. So I encourage them to create that, right?
Yes,
And
that.
you know what you're aiming for, like what would the best Georgia do right now? Well, if you don't know what she would do, then create a vision of what she would do.
Mhm, definitely. I think a big thing for me is like kind of romanticizing everything and in a realistic way, but just taking all the small bits of your life just day to day and making those as enjoyable as possible has really
Yes.
helped me. And then through just doing that and just find out what makes you happy on the inside, just through like, because you don't have to do anything massive to find out what you love, what you don't like. It can just be every day and you just learn, and every day you're like, oh, I really enjoyed this moment, didn't enjoy this other moment so much, and you can just build. It feels like you're building your own character,
Yeah.
and then you can, through practice and making mistakes and learning from them, you can sort of just figure out who you want to be. And then every day you can work towards doing that. And I had a great fear that me, recovered me, would be, I don't know, just stereotypically like not being able to do anything, not be productive. I'd just spend my life eating food and sat on the couch and in bed. And that's not like, I have moments where I sit on the couch and eat food, but I also have moments where I go out with my partner, I laugh with friends, I just sit by myself and listen to a podcast because I enjoy it. And it's a bit of everything. And I like to vision my life as a little bit of everything
I
that
love
makes me happy. Obviously, you have to do some things that you don't necessarily want to do. That's like part of life, and it can't always be exactly what you want. And I think that's part of it as well, because through recovery, that was quite difficult as well. It was quite a sticking point, especially for me and my partner, because I was like, no, but I'm meant to be doing exactly what I want to do all the time. He's like, well, that's not quite realistic. Sometimes you have to go to work. Sometimes you have to pick up dog poo. You have to
Yeah.
do things that you don't want to do, but it doesn't mean that you're not yourself. You can be a bit of everything.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing is, and this is so true, I remember it for me, the eating disorder catastrophizes recovery because it doesn't want you to do it. So you said the eating disorder thought you would literally be lazy, you would do nothing, you wouldn't be, it thinks that, oh, you can't recover because you're going to be the complete opposite of who you are. But you're just saying, and I've had the experience too, that's not true. And I say we, and I'm probably speaking to like most of our listeners right now, we don't need to worry about not being productive enough or not being high achievers because that's who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of striving for perfection now, I strive for excellence instead. And around that point is good enough for me. It's also good enough if I don't reach excellence. But you see what I'm saying? It's like that will never go. You will never just go from a high achiever trying to be a perfectionist, which is actually trying to get away from shame. We just don't realize that, to
Mm-hmm.
being the most unproductive, lazy person ever. It's impossible. Don't let
Yeah.
the eating disorder decide that that's what will happen in recovery, because it won't.
And yeah, the way I see it is we have all developed eating disorders or compulsive movement problems or anything, like whatever we've developed is because we are good at it, and then the illness grabs onto what we're good at and ruins it, essentially takes it to the extreme.
Yes, true.
We are good at most of us enjoy food, and most of us enjoy movement and doing things, being productive. So we don't have a problem there. We have a overachievement problem that the eating
Yes.
disorder is like taken from us. So we need to learn to be good at other things, such as resting, such as um, everything else, basically.
Yeah,
And then
self-freedom.
self-love, self-care, putting ourselves first, and then over time everything will balance out. And I think it's very important though to not, for me, for like the first 3 months of my my recovery, of my real recovery, like through coaching and everything, looks very much like me sat on the couch with food, surrounded in food, and like watching TV and paint by numbers, and it felt very lazy, it felt very unproductive, it felt not like me now. But I had to go through that, and now everything's sort of balancing out, and it's quite nice. And I think it's very important for people that if the pendulum has to swing the other way, and it will come back to center over time, gradually, if you fully allow it to.
Boom. If you get out of the fucking way of yourself
Yes.
and stop trying to find a shortcut, because there is none, you have to go through. That's the whole point, right? If
Yeah.
there was a shortcut around your fear and what you felt uncomfortable doing, then we would all be doing it and we would be recovered already. But you
Yeah.
have to go through it. So,
And yeah. Sorry, I was just gonna say, like, it's a case of stop using your brain and use your heart more. And
yeah,
because the reason why we've all got eating disorders is because our brains got hooked on to food, calories, exercise. So we need to unlatch our brains and go into our bodies and listen to what feels right for our bodies. And just, I know it's hard, and it sounds like, if I say, oh, just stop overthinking, it sounds impossible, but you can learn to overthink less over time.
you can, because you were like the queen of overthinking.
Yeah.
More so than I think I ever was. And I was an overthinker, although I didn't identify as one. You were overthinking everything. And you're now talking about leading and living from your heart. And that's just so beautiful. It's going to serve you like for the rest of your life.
I can feel it well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, random question. Describe my coaching in 3 words.
Mm. Empowering, supportive, and loving.
Thank you.
Because yeah, I never felt love so strong, I think, from yourself and the whole community around it. And it's kind of like love comes through the ground, lifts you up, and carries you through recovery. And not carries, but it gives you the tools to carry yourself through recovery.
Yes.
And that,
Spoken like a true queen. Like, seriously, you can tell this queen does the work. Like, she's always turning it around, taking full responsibility for herself, because only you can do it. We can love you 100%. And if you can only receive 40% of our love, you only feel 40% of our love. So you have to allow that
mm-hmm,
support, that love, and then enable you to then make the changes, because only you can do it. And you have.
100%, yeah. And I
What?
know, so I was just going to say, like, the word allow is so important in
Yeah.
recovery.
In so many ways, actually. Food, love, rest, yeah,
Just
compassion.
allow everything, and that helps create that abundance mindset that we all need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got 2 questions left for you, Georgia.
Yeah.
Number one, obviously we know the answer, but I want to hear you say it and perhaps why. Is recovery worth all the time, all the money, all the fear to get where you are now?
Yes, it is. And the recovery in the moment, when you are, I'm trying to sort of think back, and I would think it, like, when before I started it, I was like, this is going to be so unproductive. I'm going to just spend half a year sat on my backside eating food. why that's not going to serve me. And actually, that's the most productive, loving, kind thing that you could ever do for yourself, because those 6 months, that money, that time and effort, that pain that you go through, because it is painful in the moment, gives you your whole life back.
Mm. It's a good trade-off, right? It's worth it.
Definitely is, yeah.
Yeah. Last question. I don't know if you're ready to be asked this, yes, but I'm just going to ask you anyway. I think you might know what's coming. You are either in the process of considering to starting your own coaching practice, mentoring people to recovery. Tell us about that and how ready are you to support? If people are listening and they're like, I want you to help me, is that possible and how?
I don't have anything officially set up yet, but if there's interest, then I will get my shit together and set it up.
Yes.
Because I have a page on my Instagram, and through that, I've had a lot of people message me just asking like random questions, and I have loved talking people through it
Mm.
and helping people. And sometimes like people have gone like, "Oh, I didn't need that much information, but thanks, I'll take it." Like, I just love it, and I think because it helped me so much, I know how valuable it is.
Yes.
Um, just to feel not alone, just to feel like you're not an alien going through this. Um, and it just brings me so much joy. And I've never been a person, when you ask a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? I've never ever had an answer. And I think that's because I was meant to go through this, which I didn't know I would go through when I was like 10 years old. I was meant to go through this and then like evolve into, yeah, being a coach. And it's something that I've never thought about until it's just happened.
You'd be
Um,
a great coach. And I'm going to say this on air, so to speak, so everyone can hear too. I think I don't want to use the word should, because that's not right for me. I think it would be a great idea for all the questions you get from Instagram to create your own podcast, maybe even called Q&A with Queen G or something like that. And then every question you get, like you can speak until you get too busy, then you might have to broaden it out a bit because you'll be bombarded with great questions. To start off answering those questions as an episode, because not only will you then be helping that person specifically, you'll be
mm,
helping like what, hundreds and then eventually thousands of other people.
yeah, I would love that. Just makes me so, even just hearing you say those words, it makes me feel warm inside, and like it gives me, helping people gives me some sort of like power inside, and I just feel like I've got so much love to give. So it'd be nice to give it out and to share it. So yeah, I'd
I know
take that.
how that feels. It's the
Mhm.
best feeling in the entire world. So start your own podcast. Everyone's heard it here first. Go and I'll obviously link everything below, like your Instagram, I'll link below. When
Yeah.
you have started your podcast, I'll come and update the page. So if they're listening to this in the future, they
I've
can,
got some in my hands. That'd be good.
there you go. And is there
Oh,
anything that I've not asked you that you might want to share?
um, no, I don't. I think because I just want people just to feel love, supported, and I want people to know that they might be so super duper scared, but they can still recover, go through recovery,
You
and it's
can.
possible. And that's all I want people to know. Please, please just have hope and don't give up.
Yeah, because what you've got nothing to lose, really.
Yeah, I was so close to giving up countless amount of times, even going through recovery. So many times, like going through the modules, like your modules, I thought, oh, this is too hard, I can't do it anymore.
Mm.
And then you sort of get yourself together, have a little cry, and then you think, okay, now I'm going to continue doing it. Just please don't give up.
Yeah, it's worth it. And thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm so grateful I asked you to be on because
I
you help
am.
each other in the group. Like, people are really starting to see you as like, oh my God, she's been through it. She's recovered. She knows what she's talking about. So thank you for coming and sharing your story, Queen G.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute privilege. I feel
You're
very special.
so welcome. And queens, please screenshot this, tag us, share us, share the Spotify episode, tag me and Georgia, and we will reshare you and we appreciate you. If it can help anyone else, just share. And I'll see you next week. Much love.
Thank you.